So now I'd like to introduce Laura Bowie. I'm delighted that Laura has been terrific in working with us. She's the executive director of the Gulf of Mexico Alliance, which is the Gulf of Mexico Alliance is a regional ocean partnership that works to sustain the resources of the Gulf of Mexico. The regional ocean partnerships are voluntarily convened by the governors of all the states in collaboration with the government and stakeholders to address ocean and coastal issues of common concern in the Gulf region. GOMA has been an integral partner to the formation and the operation of the Gulf of Mexico Research Initiative. And Laura, our success could not have been possible without you. We thank you very, very much and look forward to your remarks. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Rita. Sure. And I would say that the success of the GOMRI program would not have been possible without your leadership. So thank you very much. I'll make my comments brief. You'll notice that I am starting my presentation with a slide with a bunch of letters on it, right? Which I know you're not supposed to do. But I am just going to give a brief overview or context of the relationship between GOMA and GOMRI and this great partnership that we've had through the years. Like Rita said, I'm Laura Bowie and I'm the Executive Director for the Gulf of Mexico Alliance, often called GOMA. Next slide, please. So I will probably refer to us as GOMA several times throughout this brief presentation. A lot of you may already know what GOMA is, and therefore I'm just going to give the highlights, the overview. Basically, the mission of GOMA is to enhance the ecological and economic health of the Gulf region through increased regional collaboration. And it's those last three words that are key here. The whole premise of GOMA from the very beginning was bringing people together. The more people we have to address issues, the better off those solutions will be. Next slide. So we were started in 2004, and I'm not going to go through every single year here, but I just wanted to give you a little background, a little how our structure is built. We were started way back 16 years ago. Then Governor Jeb Bush reached out to then Governor Haley Barbour of Mississippi. They put their heads together and thought maybe we could work on some things in the Gulf region from a regional standpoint rather than a state-by-state standpoint. It was about this same time that the Pew Oceans report came out and the Ocean Commission's report came out. And both of those reports really indicated one of the highest recommendations was that states that surround a particular water body should really try to act together to manage or protect or conserve that water body. So they reached out to their fellow governors and their side next door neighbor states. And it was an experiment. It really was. It was just to see if this would even be possible in the Gulf. And so we're still here 16 years later. You can see this is our structure. We have an alliance management team that is consists of the directors of the natural resource agencies in all 5 states. Plus, we could not do it without our federal partners. Our federal partners were also there to stand us up at the time when this was conceived. They said, really, this is a great idea, and with the federal support, we can make this happen. So we also have always, from the very beginning, in addition to representation from the Gulf states, we have representation from EPA, NOAA, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So you can see we have a small staff. We have a couple of different standing committees, a business advisory council that represents the 7 largest industries operating in the Gulf of Mexico. We have a standing federal work group of the other federal agencies. In addition to NOAA, EPA, and Fish and Wildlife, we have the several other federal agencies that all get together on a regular basis, monthly basis, to really talk about what's going on in the federal world in the Gulf of Mexico. And then we run 2 very big programs. We have our priority issue teams and committees, but we also administer the Gulf of Mexico Research Initiative. And I'll talk a little more about that relationship in just a moment. Next slide, please. Really, we are made up of over 1,000 people participate in the Gulf of Mexico Alliance. Primarily, it was started with state and federal natural resource agency personnel. But as we grew, we knew for certain that we could not do this collaborative, science-based approach to management of the Gulf without our academic partners from universities and academic institutions across the Gulf region. I think you'll hear from Larry McKinney after a while, and Larry, as the executive director for Hart Research Institute, was one of the first ones at the table to say that the science community will back this up if we're able to stand this program up. And so we also have our NGO communities, our science-based NGO communities, Nature Conservancy, Ocean Conservancy, Audubon, so the national ones, but we also have a lot of local ones as well. And like I said, we have a lot of business and industry people that participate in all our various committees and teams. Let's see, next slide. So why were we formed? Really, it was to play some very super basic functions, provide forums for collaboration on those, whatever those regional priorities were for the Gulf states. Then once they got together, it's kind of, they realized it would be great if we had some tools and pilot projects and some studies, especially academic science-based studies, to really help inform the natural resource managers. And then of course, to enable strategic partnerships to fill those needs, those science gaps that come up, that the natural resource managers need the answers to in order to perform their jobs. So these are kind of the basic functions that GOMA plays. Next slide. And these are our priorities. We revisit these about every 3 to 5 years. These are our basic 6 priorities that they've changed slightly over time, but consistently that shows up that we want to focus on, the Gulf states want to focus on coastal community resilience, data and monitoring, education, stewardship, engagement, habitat resources, conservation of, improving water resources as well, and protecting our wildlife and fisheries. Next slide. And we do it according to action plans. And these are our action plans that we've put out in the past, we've published in the past. You'll notice all of them that we're in the middle of our, or actually towards the end of our 3rd action plan. They have all been signed off on by all 5 Gulf state governors. We cannot move forward on actions or objectives, goals or objectives, without having the sign off from all 5 Gulf state governors. And so we are nearing the end of Action Plan, Governor's Action Plan 3, and we are writing Action Plan 4 now. So this is a process we're used to, and we get more and more collaboration and partners as we go forward. Next slide. So you may be wondering, well, that was a lot of background information about GOMA, but what's the connection with GOMRI? And so I just wanted to share, next slide. I just wanted to share, so as I mentioned, we were formed in 2004. We were a network of state and federal research agency, state and federal agencies. We had our research institutes there at the table. We had our NGOs and our business partners, everybody collaborating together. And when the oil spill happened, as Rita mentioned, BP reached out to several scientists to form the Gulf of Mexico Research Initiative, but they needed an administrator, a fiscal agent, if you will. And so BP reached out to GOMA, and we entered into the GOMRI Master Research Agreement with BP in March of 2011. Next slide. And really, it was a great intersection, to be honest. We had that natural resource management people at the table. We had a lot of science and academia at the table, but what GOMRI brought in was really new and emerging ecosystem science and research that we were able to cycle back to our natural resource managers. This helped in all that. This was at the very beginning too, the very beginning stages of lots of restoration planning. So the more science and research that came out of the GOMRI program, it could inform the restoration planning going forward, which is still happening today. Next slide. So I'll conclude here with, as Rita mentioned, the GOMOSIS conference was one of the best ways to get the GOMRI science out, and we don't want to lose that. We want to continue the momentum there. And so GOMA has its own all hands meeting every year, if you will, where we have about 500 people, natural resource managers, academics, NGOs, all of our partners there together to talk about priority issues. GOMOSIS had a premier science and research conference every year, and then the Hart Research Institute every 3 years had the Gulf Summit, very robust discussions from a high-level management perspective. We would like to, the three of us would like to really combine the 3 conferences into one and maybe have it every other year. So it would become, if you will, for this audience, it'll become the sequel to GOMOSIS. We really want to bring that, that science and research community together with the natural resource management community. And we think this is a great way to do it. We have experience running conferences for both GOMA and GOMOSIS. And, you know, Hart has the great experience of the summit. So I think combined, we'll be able to make a really robust program for everybody in attendance, where you can really begin to make those connections between new and emerging science and what we need in order to have a healthier Gulf of Mexico. So you'll notice the name of it, the Gulf of Mexico Conference, because after a while we all just began to call it that, the conference, or, you know, the Gulf Conference or the Gulf of Mexico Conference. And so it may become that over time because, you know, we hate to continue to call it all hands GOMOSIS Gulf Summit. It's just a mouthful. So eventually we do believe that this conference will just become the Gulf Conference or the Gulf of Mexico Conference. The intention there really is to integrate oil spill science with natural resource planning. So I do hope that I will see you all there. We had hoped to have our first one in April of 21. Due to the pandemic, we don't know that that's going to be possible. We're going to have a virtual preview of it, though, in April of 21, and we will be together in spring of 2022. So I will stop there and see who I need to pass it off to next.
I'll take it from there. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Laura. It's a pleasure to have you guys speak with us today. We really appreciate it.